Can God transform that part of my heart? Not change the other guy. Can he change me? Howdy folks, it's Father Columba here, and today I wanted to talk to you about complaining. I've been just amazed thinking about St. Paul and his attitude towards stuff, the cost he had to pay, the price he had to pay in his ministry and his willingness to pay it. In the Acts of the Apostles, the focus isn't, you don't see him complaining. Various different times you see him like getting back to home base, and he gathers the church, him and Barnabas, after the first missionary journey, and they tell them all of the amazing things God has done. That's what he gives testimony to. Now, of course he would, because, it's his glorious adventure, and it's the first time the gospel is proclaimed in these areas. It's amazing. But looking at St. Paul and then looking at myself and the stuff I spend most of the time talking about, guys, and I realize I complain so much. So I live in a house with brothers, and we work very closely with missionaries, with volunteers. We do loads of work, and the work is really wonderful and blessed, and we see people growing in their faith all the time, people coming to faith. We see people being healed, like the stuff not a million miles different at all from what we see in the Acts of the Apostles. But you know where my brain is a lot of the time? My brain is in the kitchen sink. Literally, I get up in the morning, say some of my initial prayers, get ready, go downstairs, do my prayers. Then I go into the kitchen and get my cup of tea. And I see the kitchen sink, and I see all of the coffee grounds, and I see all the unwashed mugs. And again in my head, like, oh, these lads. Whether it's the brothers, the friars I live with, or whether it's people who were visiting the night before, or whether it's some of our volunteers. And I struggle with that, and I focus on it, and I meditate on it. And then I talk about it to other people. And out will come all of those little things, those things I'm feeding on, I haven't properly dealt with. I'm feeding on them, and I'm feeding them these little resentments, these little things that annoy me and actually dominate my thinking and my behavior and my speech more thoroughly than does what God is doing in the ministry, in my heart, in my prayer, which is miraculous and amazing. And that is not what captures me. What captures me is the kitchen sink and the coffee grounds. The people of Israel, their major sin when they were the 40 years in the desert, which is recounted in Exodus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers, the books in the Old Testament, their major sin was grumbling. And it wasn't grumbling about, big stuff or, God's not showing up, because he was. Like, he was right there in a pillar of fire, and he would come down upon the tent of meeting, and Moses would come out of the tent and his face would be glowing, and they couldn't even look at him. So that the evidence of God's presence, and he kept miraculously feeding them every morning with manna, and then all these birds would come and fall in the camp, and they could just pick them up and cook them. So they had all this evidence of God's really here. This is really good. But they were so focused on, but the food. Lads, I think if they had a kitchen sink, they'd be grumbling about it like me. Oh, I mean, it's great that God does all this stuff, but listen, what does it matter if the sink isn't clean? What am I at? Entering into this grumbling spirit. And then I come back to St. Paul, not just what he does in the Acts of the Apostles, what he's willing to endure for the sake of the gospel, for the sake of the joy that lay ahead, the joy of the salvation of souls, which he was working and laboring for his whole life. He was willing to, and he boasts, especially in 2 Corinthians, I think it's chapter 11, boasts of his weakness. He's comparing himself to these so-called super apostles, these people who come into Corinth in different places, and they would disparage, they would slag off Paul and say his ministry is rubbish, he's not a real apostle, he's blah, blah, blah. They would really tear his character down. So St. Paul goes on this rant, and he kind of says, here's why I'm just as good as them. And he says, but even more so, I will boast of my weakness. So he boasts of all his sufferings. But even then, he's just this, he gets into this place of I don't want to boast of my strength and the gifts that God has given me, because that's God's business. He talks about this sickness or this spiritual oppression. We're not sure what exactly it is. And he prays 3 times for God to remove it, this thorn in the flesh. Yeah, God's answer to him is, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. He said, and I will all the more gladly boast of my weakness. And it's completely opposite to how I think. He's boasting about the fact of wow, I do all of this stuff and the sink is still a mess, and the people around me are imperfect, and the church is imperfect, and it's in this that we're really going to see the victory. It's completely opposite to how I operate. It is a blessing that I live with people who are not perfect and who annoy me and who tempt me towards complaining. Not that I will give in to complaining, but that I can recognize in it the work of God. Just as much as in the mission field, I can recognize in this God is working through me. He is giving me not patience, but the opportunity to say yes to the gift of patience. The opportunity to try and practice patience, to try and practice love, to try and practice have that conversation with the person you don't want to have the conversation with. The courage to confront in love. St. Bernard of Clairvaux, he said, if I lived in a monastery and there wasn't a difficult brother in the house, I would run as quickly as I could to the next monastery and beg them that they would give me the grace of a difficult brother. He would beg for a difficult brother and he would take him home like a deep treasure. It's like a monastery that doesn't have someone in it who is a pain in the face is a poor monastery. I remember I heard that the first time. Because I'd be thinking, oh my gosh, this person in my house who I live with, if only he wasn't there. If only he didn't have that issue. If only he'd clean the sink. Then everything would be fine. And St. Paul and St. Bernard say, actually, you've got it completely wrong. Do you have anyone in your life you're thinking, if only they would X? Say if a husband or a wife, if you're married, or your kids thinking of your parents, or you're thinking of your whoever, your boss. If only they would, then everything would be perfect. Then I wouldn't be so, my life would be transformed. What have I done there? Well, I've made them God. I've given them all the power. You have to change for me to enter into what God wants me to enter into, to live in peace, love, joy, and serenity. I need you to change. I cannot change him. I cannot make a brother. I could talk to him, but I can't make him clean the sink. I can't make him learn those disciplines, whatever else. I can't. But can I live in union with God despite that? And can God use that to really transform me? Yeah, if I will let him. And go even further, that I would boast, I would want to hold on to him. Yes, I want his transformation in holiness, but I would want to hold on to, I would seek out and rejoice in those things that actually annoy me the most, because they're the place where I can grow. The truly holy, the really humble, they don't get offended. They don't get annoyed by dirty sinks. They don't get annoyed by jobs not done around the house or whatever else. As Jesus said, if someone wants to force you to go 1 mile, go 2 miles with them. If he wants to steal your coat, give him your shirt as well. Give it away quicker than he can take it. We cannot get to that degree of utter transformation and utter peace without there being something to become peaceful about, without somebody who provokes me, without something that's not perfect. And I want to control and make everything perfect. But I can't. And that's exactly the thing I need to surrender. And that's exactly that. This is the place. This is the place of my weakness. My weakness is the place where I meet God. And I know I've talked about this so many times, guys. Stop complaining. But it's huge. For me, this is huge. This is where the rubber meets the road day in, day out. Because other stuff like sharing the gospel and praying with people and growing in holiness, that stuff in a certain sense is easy. The stuff that's hard is people. And what's hard is me humbling myself, accepting people as they truly are, and inviting God into that place in my heart where I rub against other people and I'm just, can God transform that part of my heart? Not change the other guy. Can he change me? Can I welcome him? Instead of staying in blame and complain, can I welcome him into that part of my heart and say, Jesus, I'm annoyed as heck and I can't let this go. I'm going to boast of that. And I'm going to lift it up to you. And I'm going to ask you, Lord, to perfect your strength in my weakness. Transform this and at least help me to keep giving it to you in gratitude and in trust that you are doing all things well in me and around me. Anyway, there you go, lads. That's my thought for the day. Hope that works, helps. Definitely helped me today. I need to change. I need to change. Let's pray for each other. God bless you. This sounds like a complaining video. It's not actually. It's the opposite. It's supposed to be the opposite. Please God help it to be the opposite.